we're going to we'll look at the weather like next week now. Pull that up for you, and we'll go ahead and see what's going on generally. So we're going to look quickly at the just broad scale because it was something I want to show you, and of course the usual click and roll. Hopefully that's big enough for you. What I want to show you is the actual lack of long wave troughs. Now, long wave troughs, again, as I showed you before, are those quite dominant features where there's a broad area of low pressure that exists for quite over some thousands of kilometers. And you can normally determine them because on the weather map here, or we can see here the winds. You'll see this sort of very long, thin line, very much sort of similar to what you can see here, but more sort of definitely a lot more pronounced. And there's none on the weather map at all. In fact, that's probably the only one I can see is this long here. The rest are all what we call shortwave troughs, and you can see this little sort of wave effect where the curl up is where the trough is. That curling up there is actually quite small. That's quite a decent polar low there, but really no much above it, as you can see. And that is responsible for the real lack of any penetration of anything other than just cold, still dry air. And so there's been no real moisture penetrating at all from the south. There's been no decent cold fronts penetrating from the south. And what we're seeing actually is not cold fronts for this cold air. It's actually just basically the fact that there's been these large highs sat plonked over us for a period of time, and they're in their usual spot, and they've been more of a westerly component than a northwesterly component, and so we're getting this radiational effect, cooling effect at nighttime when all the warmer air, so to speak, is escaping, and it's not being replaced by warmer air during the day, and it's basically just hanging around, and the cooler air stays around and quite still. And we'll zoom in a little bit. You can see these high pressure systems here, quite dominant. And there's this bit of a trough coming through here. But you can see again, it's not a real decent long wave trough. It's definitely a short, sharp trough. You can see with some impacts, but again, real absence of that really significant troughs backing out, and that's one of the reasons why we're not really getting any much activity happening. And again, Perth has also been copping the brunt of it, which is not unusual given that their winters are normally cold and wet. But when you see Perth copping it, you can guarantee that we're going to be not getting much, and there's just that real balance because the way that the systems are set up, when Perth is copping it, you can see here this high is here, and what it's doing is actually grabbing the colder air from the Antarctica regions and ramming it up through Perth. And of course, the consequence of that is then we get the dead air from that, which is this high pressure system here. So, whenever air rises from the low, it's going to come down again. So really, this low here, air is rising and it's being dumped behind it. And the air here from this low pressure system here, or this general area of low here, is rising up and then dumping over in this high pressure system here. And that's basically what's happened. So we're getting the leftover effects of the systems to our east. And that's the high pressure system just over the Tasman. And because it's really hasn't got a long fetch, and there's quite a lot of dead cold air over the Tasman, and again, those lower than average sea surface temperatures as well, it's all contributing to really not much happening in terms of impact for us, other than there's still sort of quiet, dry, cold air, and there's not a lot of wind either. So looking ahead this week, we're going to see a bit of a shift in the pattern for the first time in ages. And it's going to be in the form of this short, sharp, shortwave cold front coming through here. You can see just here the very defined line, and you can see they're heading up towards the southeast, and that's been backed by this quite decent fetch of this high pressure system. You can see how far south it is, and so what it's doing is actually being able to grab air as it comes off the Antarctic continent here. You can see, and it's then shunting the air up towards us. So it's going to be quite nippy, this change. But of course, the direction of this change, you can see, is going to be basically from the southwest. So any decent rainfall effects will be filtered out by the Snowy Mountains and the Great Dividing Range for us. But we still should see some showers into Tuesday. So we'll hop into Tuesday now. And you see this change starting to push through, a bit of a milder northwesterly flow ahead of it, although not quite strong and not a very long fetch. So it won't be that mild, but it'll still be like pretty 19, I'd say. Maybe might even get a 20. But that will be the end of it for those couple of days. And I actually might put the temperatures on because winds really don't match. Let's go in. Ooh. You can see here this band of cold air coming up. And again, reasonably decent, but it's not that deep because it's not a long wave trough, it's short wave stuff. So there's really no building up like or damming of the cold air. You see this high here off Perth. And then into Tuesday afternoon or evening, you can see this change starts to push through now. Is a bit of disagreements amongst the models about when this actually arrives. Originally, there was sort of Tuesday, and now it's looking maybe early Wednesday. But we should start to see some shower activity come through. Um, not much, I'm sorry to say, but late Wednesday, like Tuesday, early Wednesday. You can see here EC, which is updated along there. You can see that real cloud band. We might actually zoom in now. The good thing is the snow has got a good top up, and you can see this change is delayed. So I think it might even be Wednesday now before we even actually see anything, to be honest. And you can see again that snow up in the Southern Highlands and in the Oberon area, and a lot of the higher peaks in the Great Dividing Range as this change pushes through. And you can see it's going to be quite a strong southwesterly surge, but really not a lot for us. Going to be quite windy though. But that change is really pushed back now to Wednesday, isn't it? Really pushing to Wednesday. Again, you can see snow up to the west of us. It's going to be cold and frigid. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of shower activity again. And that's actually died off since this morning. So it's going to be filtered out by that the western areas of the Blue Mountains, Great Dividing Range. They'll see some good falls. In fact, there's going to be widespread snow. So in some of the areas, as you can see here, so we might actually zoom right in now and forget the broader stuff because that's basically what's going to be leftovers for this week. Quite a lot of snow here forecast and sleet, and it's quite a substantial change. A lot of lightning off the coast. Unfortunately, not a lot for us, but that's indicative of how cold the air is going to be. And you can see here quite a bit of patches of snow. So, unfortunately, it looks like, oh, here we go. Tuesday, where's EC skipped it. So there is a chance of some showers Tuesday. I thought so. Bit of a band coming through. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it hadn't refreshed, but definitely some chances. I always thought there was going to be some, but I was a bit confused with how it disappeared. Bit of a cloud band, but you can see it's not going to hang around long. So Tuesday lunchtime, bit of cloud band coming through, some showers. They'll feel quite cold because they'll drag down some of that colder air upstairs as the change starts to move through. Again, the heaviest falls will be, of course, on the west of the Great Dividing Range, pushing into Wednesday. Plenty of snow, though, into the higher peaks and even a bit further over on there. You can see still nothing really in the Katoomba area because, again, this change is coming from the southwest, and Katoomba really needs to have that sort of southerly component to get any decent stuff there, as we saw at the last snow event. But you can see quite widespread snow there. That's how cold it's going to be. And spread right up through here to Bathurst. And so that air mass coming across the mountains into us is going to be very frigid the next few days. You can see here tops on Thursday of 13 and 14 degrees will show you just how cold it is. And Wednesday, again, 15 and 16, but that won't last very long. I think they may be a bit colder just depending on the timing of this. And into Friday, that dry air is going to hang around. Some showers in a southerly stream. We can see that southerly raging off the coast, and the coast may get some benefit of that. But again, it's going to be cold and windy on the coast. Not so bad inland, but cold still. And then into the weekend, those showers still stay coastal. And that's a bit of an upgrade since this morning. So that's good to see a little bit of showers, but not much. And you can see that wind's kicking back to the southeast as the change moves off. And the next system starts to push through again. It does like some showers on the coast through and pushes them into the west on the late in the weekend. So we'll get to see if that actually comes out.